So we start with the status of development, and yeah, you know him already, Richard Klees, but he's my sidekick today, because sidekick is not right, because we do it. It sounds as if you only show me some slide. No, we're gonna do that together this morning, and also have some guests. Okay, shortly. Mentioning the roadmap of ILIAS, most of you know probably. So where we are at the moment, the orange dotted line is where we are today. So you see we have still ILIAS 8, ILIAS 9 is in the full maintenance. We are working on ILIAS 10, and then we are already talking a lot about ILIAS 11, and ILIAS 12 is far at the horizon, but I know that it comes quicker than we think. So just give you a short overview. ILIAS 8, we are now in the first time that we do that in the security bug fixes only phase of an ILIAS version. So we only accept security bug fixes, no more usability fixes and so on. That ended on 31st of December last year. So another 9 months that we give support for ILIAS 8 with security bug fixes only, and I guess we will offer and publish our first security bug fix release not far in the future, I guess. So that also means that all of you that are currently running ILIAS 8 should already start to plan moving to ILIAS 9. ILIAS 9, we are at the moment in the full maintenance of ILIAS 9. We published it on end of April last year. We have the active support until end of the year with all kind of bug fixes, usability and whatever. And then 18 months of security bug fixes from 2026, beginning of 2026, until end of June 2027. We spoke about that in Karlsruhe last year, so we modified a bit our rules, because usually we want only to offer 12 months of security bug fixes only, but in this case we said, okay, 18, then it fits better with the PHP release, I guess. That was the main reason.
I think it will be also the same for ILIAS 10, right? We will also do 1.5 years of security maintenance for ILIAS 10, I think. I'm not quite sure.
Okay, we have to discuss.
The same arguments will apply there, I guess.
Okay, because then I have to update my this slide, because here I thought that we do it until end of December 2027. So where we are with ILIAS 10, at the moment we are still in the beta testing. It took longer than we thought. We already thought that we might publish the release maybe still in March, but yeah, still we don't have reached 98% of past test cases, which is our benchmark that has to be reached.
Where are we at the moment?
I haven't looked at it at this moment, but I think we are short before 90.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know when we can offer the stable release. Hopefully end of April. All of you who are still have to do retesting, or if all of you who have to still to make bug fixes, please try to give it a big priority, so we can really publish the release as soon as possible. And then again, okay, until end of 26, active support and bug fix only, either end of 2007 or mid 2008. So I think it's 2 years, 3 years ago when we thought, okay, what will be the main topics on our DevConf meetings in spring and in autumn. So according to this decision, we are today mainly talking about developing ILIAS 11, because that's the release, or that's the version you are, or the programmers of you are working for at the moment. Except of the bug fixes for tenant as well. So let's start with some points from ILIAS 11 and ask Oliver to start with a short review and a looking forward for legacy UI.
Dankeschön. Ja, ich bin einer derjenigen, die auf Deutsch sprechen werden. Ich klicke selber, mache ich. Genau, ich will ein kurzes Status-Update geben zum Projekt Removing of Legacy UI. Wir kümmern uns um eine ganze Reihe alter UI-Elemente für alle diejenigen, die vom Projekt noch nichts gehört haben. Das heißt, es geht am Ende darum, viel qualitativ zu überarbeiten, alte Komponenten, die in Zweifel nicht mehr maintained sind, auch mit dem Projekt aus dem Code zu tragen und insgesamt die Plattform unter vielen verschiedenen Parametern zu ertüchtigen. Dazu gehören dann Nebeneffekte, die können betreffen die Usability, die UX insgesamt. UI ist ja das große Ziel. Wir reden aber eben auch von Punkten um Barrierefreiheit, Security und Performance. Das Projekt streckt sich nicht wie ursprünglich geplant nur von ILIAS 9 bis 10, sondern inzwischen eben auch bis 11. Das hat schlichtweg damit zu tun, wie groß der Gesamtbearbeitungsumfang ist. Was ist der Umfang, über den wir reden? Ich habe diese Tabellen, die ihr im Zweifel jetzt auch schon 2, 3, 4 Mal gesehen habt, nochmal mitgebracht. Wir haben im Laufe von ILIAS 9 und 10 eine ganze Menge kleinerer Komponenten komplett entfernt und arbeiten aber auch bereits seit ILIAS 9 und 10 an Dingen, die endgültig im besten Fall mit ILIAS 11 aus dem System verschwinden sollen. Die Dinge, die wir an der Stelle noch haben, dann machen wir das erstmal so. Die Dinge, die wir noch haben, sind unter anderem alte Tabellenimplementierungen, alte Bestätigungsdialoge. Wir reden über die ganzen Tree-Komponenten, mit denen irgendwo etwas ausgewählt werden kann, aber auch so etwas wie die Toolbars und die Tabs. Ich habe heute, weil auch das kann man nicht jedes Mal neu erfinden, einfach 3 kleine Beispiele mitgebracht, die sich alle im Bereich der Tabelle befinden. Ein Stück weit deshalb, um zu zeigen, wir übertragen das nicht einfach an allen möglichen Stellen stumpf, sondern versuchen an vielen Stellen eben auch Verbesserungen mit einzuführen. Das, was man jetzt hier zum Beispiel sieht, ist einfach im aktuellen Trunk, also für ILIAS 11, die Cronjob-Tabelle, die künftig auch solche Dinge unterstützen wird, wie einfach zu den unterschiedlichen Tabellenabschnitten springen zu können, sehen zu können, wenn irgendwo Probleme auftauchen, damit man sich beispielsweise nicht durch diese Liste von, ich glaube, im Standard knapp 40 Cronjobs durchwühlt. Einfach Kleinigkeiten, die im Zuge dessen versucht werden, mit zu verbessern. Etwas, was vielleicht für gerade die Anwender vom Test schon bekannt sein dürfte, ist die Nutzung eben im Test-Question-Pool und im Test selber, um eben auch mit der Tabelle einfach schneller, übersichtlicher erkennen zu können, wo was liegt, standardisiert das Ganze immer wieder auf die gleiche Art anzeigen zu können, beispielsweise hier auch mit den Ergänzungen um die Taxonomien. Etwas, was ich glaube jetzt noch nach 10 getragen wurde, ist auch die neue Ordering Table. Das heißt, wir sortieren künftig eben auch mit einem Derivat dieser UI Data Table. Und was man auf der linken Seite sieht, deswegen habe ich es nochmal hervorgehoben, das Ganze integriert an der Stelle auch ein Drag and Drop, mit dem man eben mit der Maus das Ganze durch die Gegend bewegen kann. Diejenigen, die diese Möglichkeiten nicht nutzen können unter Barrieregesichtspunkten, haben weiterhin die Möglichkeit, das über diese Position zu regeln. Das Projekt setzt sozusagen nicht auf einen fertigen Baukasten auf. Wir können also nicht einfach alles schon in der Kitchen Sink drin haben und einfach aus diesem Baukasten herausgreifen und fertig einarbeiten, sondern an einigen Stellen ist es einfach erforderlich, dass wir bestimmte Ergänzungen durchführen. Das hier ist nur eine Reihe davon, zeigt aber vielleicht auch den Gesamtprojektrahmen auf. Also wir sprechen davon, die Filter an die Tabellen zu integrieren, eine bessere Anzeige zu ermöglichen, welche Elemente ausgewählt sind. Wir müssen eine ganze Reihe von Merkmalen an überhaupt Inhalten da rein übertragen, reden aber auch davon, dass beispielsweise sowas wie Datumsformate zu harmonisieren werden oder aber auch die Toolbars, die im Grunde ja, mit sehr wenig Definition aktuell auskommen, im Grunde abgeräumt werden und in wiederkehrende UI-UX-Konzepte überführt werden. Ich möchte an der Stelle allen schon einmal danken, die sich im Rahmen des Projektes entweder finanziell beteiligt haben, in dem Fall vor allen Dingen häufig Vereinsmitglieder, habe, damit diese Tabelle irgendwie mal übersichtlich bleibt, die jetzt ergänzt um diejenigen, die neu dazugekommen sind, in dem Fall seit September in Graz. Es ist aber tatsächlich immer noch so, und das werde ich auch gleich nochmal in Zahlen zeigen, wir brauchen immerhin noch eine große weitere Unterstützung. Was hier nicht explizit im Einzelnen nochmal mit aufgeführt ist, aber auch mindestens erwähnenswert, sind die Eigenleistungen der Service-Provider, die eben auch dazu beitragen, dass dieses Projekt hier vorangetrieben werden kann. Im Crowdfunding-Wiki, das wir für Großprojekte führen, ist das Ganze dann auch immer mit Zahlen hinterlegt. Das, was wir nach aktuellen Schätzungen in Größenordnung noch ungefähr benötigen werden, um dieses Projekt durch die Tür zu tragen, und das sind immer wieder aktualisierte Zahlen, sind rund 330.000 €. Wir sind dabei, dass aus der Community aktuell rund 370.000, 375.000 € über die Projektlaufzeit bereits aufgebracht wurden. Das Ganze wird dann ergänzt, einmal eben durch die Eigenleistung des Service Provider und meine Projektmanagement- und Fundraising-Aktivität durch das Budget des Technical Boards. Das heißt, ich möchte, dass ihr überlegt, ob ihr dieses Projekt, damit wir ILIAS eben im Hinblick auf die UI und UX und auf viele andere große Ziele verbessern können, euch an der Stelle auch beteiligt. Ich lade den Foliensatz dann einfach mit hoch. Das, was hinter dem QR-Code liegt, ist nichts anderes als die Möglichkeit, Konstanze oder mich an der Stelle direkt ansprechen zu können. Und ich hoffe darauf, dass wir dieses Projekt weiter vorantreiben und ILIAS damit Stück für Stück weiter ertüchtigen.
Ich hatte ein bisschen gehofft, da befindet sich direkt ein PayPal-Link hinter dem QR-Code, Oliver.
Den PayPal-Link. Hast du den PayPal-Link?
Nee, ich habe den PayPal-Link gerade nicht. Ich wollte an. I would also like to announce that we are currently working on a progress report regarding that project from the technical board. It's not quite finished. I need to format it into a nice PDF, but it should be available today or tomorrow. So all that which Oliver just told you about can be looked up in a little more detail and with a little analysis in that report. Yeah, so component revision, it's a topic that I think we're talking about now for at least like 2 years, I guess. And this year, one question came up frequently, and the question is, what does that component revision mean for plugins? As a quick recapitulation, component revision's aim is that we try to unify all the mechanisms that we use to integrate the various components to the system ILIAS, because you all know ILIAS is made up from various components of different maintainers, and they all need to integrate with one another to form that system. And the idea of the component revision is let's try to bring that to a common standard so developers know their way around, and we can look at all these integrations in a unified way. And of course, that should also target plugins because they are a important part of the system as well. And currently, as you might all know, these plugins have specific ways to integrate with ILIAS, the plugin slots. And in most regards, also these plugins are one-trick ponies, so they can only do one thing and not another. And this is something we are going to change with that component revision. So the general idea regarding plugins is plugins will be just normal components as any other component. The main difference will be that the standard components will be created by the ILIAS community, and plugins will be created by different service providers or whoever. And that will also mean, as I told you, that plugins won't be one-trick ponies anymore. They can use the same facilities just as the core components and can be completely integrated into the system, and not only in these small places that the plugin slots leave. So I understand that some of you are a little afraid regarding what that implies for your plugins and what do you need to do with ILIAS 11. And the biggest changes will be that the location where your plugins reside will change. So currently you put the plugins at customizing globals plugins, module slot, plugin name, quite a long path. And in the future, you will put them in a folder called component vendor. That will be, for example, like Lifeforce or Database, and then the plugin name. So they are on the same level as ILIAS core plugins. And the way that you define how the plugin integrates with the system will change. That is called the component PHP. I think we have a YouTube video available that tells in a little more detail how that looks, and Niels will give a short presentation later on how that looks for a specific topic. And this will need to be introduced for the plugins. That is the location where we define how components integrate with each other. So most of the logic in your plugins should not change from the perspective of the component revision. What indeed does change, as it changes for every ILIAS release, is that we make regular developments in the rest of the code. So for example, with ILIAS 11, there will be another PHP version that we need to support, that your plugins need to support. And of course, stuff that old PHP versions support and newer don't support needs to be removed in your plugins. Or for example, regarding the removing of legacy UI project, there will be some UI elements that are not available anymore. So, as in every release, your plugin will need to move along the common changes in ILIAS. But from the perspective of the component revision, I think it's safe to say that the changes that are implied by that project are not as big as some of you might expect. If there are any more questions regarding that, feel free to watch Niels's presentation later on. Ask me. We have extensive documentation regarding the mechanisms that will be introduced there. So it should be all quite well discoverable. I hope that every one of you, every plugin developer, can make these changes easily. So I go on. What's that? Tobias and Sebastian.
Thanks. Sebastian, ich glaube, wir sind ein bisschen überrascht, dass wir das auch auf Englisch machen müssen. Deswegen versuchen wir einfach so ein bisschen zu mixen. Also, ne? Wir versuchen ein bisschen auf Englisch und ein bisschen auf Deutsch. Okay, here we go. Our subject is activities and web services. In our project ILIAS NRW, we are pursuing to refactor and adjust the web services to elevate them to a higher maturity level together with maintainers and the technical board. Thanks, Richard, for your support. And of course, we want to involve you, the developers of ILIAS. First question, Sebastian. Why do we need a well-positioned and structured web application interface for ILIAS?
So web services and activities could provide a bunch of benefits, especially for ILIAS and for the users of ILIAS. We identified some points and like to just present our opinion of these, what we think ILIAS and even you as a user can benefit.
I think the headings, even though some of them are in German, are well understandable in English. First area of interest is automatization. We think that web services enable the platform ILIAS to define and run sequences of customizable process steps. So, jetzt ein Switch auf Deutsch. Ich habe gestern zusammengesessen in der Kneipe und bin mit den Problemen von ILIAS-Nutzenden konfrontiert worden. Es hat jemand gesagt, oh, ich muss jedes Jahr im Semester die gleichen manuellen Operationen durchführen. Ich muss Kurse anlegen und Objektstrukturen anlegen und davon sehr, sehr viele. Und die müssen in einer bestimmten Art und Weise angelegt werden. Und da klicke ich mir einen Wolf. Das ist was, wo wir sehr gute Möglichkeiten sehen, Web-Services für einzusetzen und diese Prozesse zu automatisieren. Hier als ganz konkretes Beispiel, dargestellt durch die von einer KI generierten Bilder. Wir könnten uns vorstellen, dass sich Studierende bei einer Klausur im Vorhinein an einem Terminal oder über einen Scanner mit ihrem Studierendenausweis registrieren, automatisch in die Klausur zugelassen werden, die Klausur durchgeführt wird in einem Lehr-Lernraum und dann die Prüfungsergebnisse in ein Prüfungsverwaltungssystem überspielt werden.
Ja, oder umgedreht, diese melden sich gerade krank und fliegen halt aus der Prüfung raus.
Und das sind natürlich nicht nur Szenarien, die für Hochschulen gelten, sondern die könnten genauso gut für irgendwelche berufsbegleitenden Zertifizierungsangebote oder eben auch Personalförderungsinstrumente dienen in Unternehmen.
Genau, also im Prinzip der zweite Punkt, wo wir sagen, ist wahnsinniges Potenzial, ist der Bereich Monitoring und Data Retrieval. Vielleicht das bekannteste Beispiel. Hatte jemand schon mal eine Anfrage DSGVO Artikel 15 und musste alle Daten von einem Nutzer zusammensuchen? 2. Hättet ihr euch gewünscht, dass das viel einfacher und automatisierter geht? Das wäre so ein Punkt. Ging. Das wäre so ein Punkt, wo man einfach von einem Nutzer mit Schnittstelle die Daten einfach abfragen könnte. Selbes Spiel ist aber zum Beispiel auch, man könnte gucken, Monitoring, werden große Datenmengen plötzlich abgefragt, abgefischt. Also das geht dann auch sehr stark über in den Bereich Security oder eben Anbindung an Security-Scanner oder sei es einfach nur der Lernfortschritt, den man sehr elegant zusammenfassen kann, also Learning Analytics diesbezüglich vielleicht auch noch einfach zusammenfassen. Genau, nächster Punkt ist dann, wo wir gesagt haben, IT-Security, ich habe es gerade schon so ein bisschen angesprochen, könnte super spannend werden, aber hier kommt natürlich auch noch die Ebene darunter. Wenn wir mit den Web-Services diese Activities, die jetzt ansprechen, wir könnten doppelten Code vermeiden und damit auch möglich Fehler reduzieren, die es halt immer gibt, oder eben auch, ich sag mal, Sprünge über Drittsysteme vermeiden. Wir machen die Authentifizierung einfacher. Also wer gerade His-and-One anbindet, der weiß, wie viele Sprünge man gehen muss und wie viel Authentifizierung dazwischen steckt. Das würde einfach deutlich vereinfacht und automatisiert werden. Und wir können eben auf basierende Sicherheitsstandards zurückgreifen, die mit der Schnittstelle schon implementiert sind.
Well, another area of interest, probably, testing. We think that web services can make automatic testing procedures possible. At present, there are about 3 people in my team doing test cases, or they just did test cases for ILIAS 10. I think they did a few hundred test cases. I think we can use web services to do testing automatically. Well, yes, we do know it's not the UI testing, but I think when we have a proper implementation of web services on top of activities, we can do that automatically, especially for the business logic layer and the data access layer. And I think another big point, we can run test procedures, like multiple steps, just one after another. All right. Next point, interoperability. We think that web services facilitate the integration of ILIAS in the IT environment of organizations. Wir haben bei uns an der Universität einen Zoo von Systemen, die miteinander zusammenarbeiten müssen. Und wir glauben und haben das auch schon teilweise, dass das Zusammenspiel der Systeme unglaublich zur User Experience über Gesamtprozesse beiträgt. Diese Möglichkeit hätten wir mit Web Services, wenn wir die sauber implementieren und es schaffen, dass wir Systeme miteinander verbinden.
Genau, und der letzte Punkt, es ist gerade so ein bisschen noch verdeckt, last point of all, we would provide making plugins easier. Richard told about the component revision, and plugins will be now first citizens within a centralized API. Plugins and the functions of plugins would provide more functionality and would be more easy to, and therefore yeah, we may address a problem of our community. We could have with a standardized API, we could provide more developers, making ILIAS interesting. And so what I think Steve Ballmer said, developers, 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 and, huh? So activities and web service would provide these goal.
Also wir denken halt wirklich, dass durch Web-Services eine größere Entwicklerschicht angesprochen wird, wir die Entwickler-Community deutlich vergrößern können. Ich habe nochmal nachgeguckt, PHP wird von ungefähr 4% der Entwickler weltweit eingesetzt noch. Das ist die Basis von unserem Legacy-Code. Und so könnten wir uns eine größere Entwickler-Community erschließen mit den Web-Services, weil dort halt auch in verschiedenen Sprachen entwickelt werden kann. Ich möchte aber eine Sache noch sagen. Grundlage für so eine Schnittstelle ist tatsächlich der Datenschutz. Weil die Schnittstelle gibt Daten nach außen. Und wir müssen genau wissen, welche Daten nach außen gegeben werden, was das für Daten sind, um eben die Daten über die Systeme hinweg transparent verfolgen zu können. Ich glaube, das kam auch in der Begrüßung raus. Wir als Open-Source-Plattform hier ILIAS haben hier in Europa und in Deutschland irgendwie eine besondere Verpflichtung, besondere Werte irgendwie zu vertreten. Und der Datenschutz, die Privacy ist da, glaube ich, was ganz Wichtiges. Und deswegen müssen wir das halt in dem Zuge mit aufräumen.
Genau, und vielleicht noch 2 Punkte am Schluss. Wir würden halt wahnsinnig Entwicklungsprozesse beschleunigen können. Also development process will accelerate heavily through by using this API, even such mock-upping, POC designing, and this all will provide having third-party systems by having look and feel of ILIAS.
Thanks.
Because thanks for the possibilities. Now maybe some of the people here think, so when and how we can use that? Maybe can you just tell 2-3 words about that? Is activities already implemented, available?
Yeah, we're working on that. So the guy there, Jefte, and I, we will show you our progress until now, and I think it's safe to say that we can have this with 11, with ILIAS 11. It does not mean that like every component has everything as web service available, but at least some infrastructure will be available, and we can also look forward, I think, to have some functionality that is available via web services. We think we might implement some stuff in the study program to be available via web services. So I think implementation-wise, like from a framework perspective, we're quite far, and now we will need to look into creating these activities for various functionality in ILIAS, and that will be the main task, I guess. But something that can be ongoing, I think. So okay. Yeah, we will have a presentation on where we are in the afternoon, I think at 15 or something. I think you will show us.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thanks again to Tobias and Sebastian. And we go on with some news from SCORM and LTI. Those of you who were at the DevConf in Graz maybe remember that we looked for developers that took over these components from Uwe Kohle, who decided not to maintain them after ILIAS 10, so after ILIAS 9. And now you have some news.
Yeah, I think many of you might have heard already, But before, I think it's important to state the importance of SCORM and LTI for an LMS like ours, because these are the main interfaces to integrate content into an LMS. So SCORM is, I don't know if it's that heavily used at universities, but for companies it's the way to get some content into the LMS, like privacy courses or any other course. It's mostly integrated via SCORM. And for LTI, I think it's quite similar regarding like tools that I want to integrate, like learning cards or stuff like that. And that is the way these tools are integrated into the LMS. So these components are extremely important, because if we don't have them, we basically can only have our own content and not integrate content from somewhere else. And that would be devastating if that wasn't possible. So Uwe Kohnle was the one who maintained these two components for quite a long time, and I think we can all thank him for his long tenure. I would like to give a little applause to Uwe. But like most things, also Uwe's tenure came to an end, and we needed to find replacement for him. And I can say that this was not an easy process, because for one, it's not easy to finance stuff like SCORM and LTI, because of course everyone wants to have it, but also they are mostly feature complete and you can't have new features to finance that stuff. And also like for all refactoring projects or all upkeep projects that we have in ILIAS, it's quite hard to find financing to just fix bugs or stuff like that. So we had a lot of talks with Matthias and the technical board, with people, and we are quite satisfied that we now have found 2 companies and 2 teams that want to take responsibility for these components, which is the team of stars from Qualitus that takes responsibility for SCORM. Daniel, I think you can... and also the team from Surlabs in Spain that takes responsibility for the LTI integration. They are sitting there in the back. And I want to remind you all that although they've assumed responsibility, that does not mean that this comes for free. I think both teams discovered quite some things to do in their components, and they both need financing for their efforts. So maybe try to look in your organizations if there are some budgets, maybe even small ones, where you can support their efforts in the future. I think both will be available to discuss options, I guess.
And it's especially addressed to those of you who are service provider and have customers, let's say in companies, in the corporate sector. We know that a lot of improvements of ILIAS are paid by universities. They are giving us a lot of money. It's very difficult, I know, to get support and funding from companies, from corporate sector. But we, as these both, mainly the SCORM, but also LTI is a component that is important for using ILIAS in the corporate sector. We have to find a way that those clients of you that use SCORM and need SCORM, that they are participating in the funding of the improvements of the SCORM support and so well as the LTI support. So we have to try to find a way for that. Please support us here. But again, thanks to that you took the risk and helped us in the community to go on with the maintenance of these very important components. Thanks a lot. So that means that SCORM and LTI does not appear on this list of abandoned features, which is my next topic. Yeah, we had that. I think it was abandoned or announced to be abandoned with ILIAS 10, but fortunately, okay, we have found a good solution for that. I start with abandoned features because just we are now in its end of March. Coding completed will be end of October. So there is those features that might be abandoned with ILIAS 11. There's still the possibility to have an influence and try to prevent that. We had, for example, there was one topic, one suggestion was to abandon the HTML learning module, and fortunately Max Becker took over the maintenance. Thanks, Max. So we can keep that. We have 3 accepted abandoned features at the moment. It's the hints and test questions, where I have to say is also I don't know yet the result of the survey from the advisory board, but there was they asked for money, or there was a claim for money for getting. To keeping this feature. I don't know if it got the necessary number of votes. So this would be one feature that is announced to be abandoned with ILIAS 11. Hints in test questions, setting LOM, of course, as group web links via SOAP. We are again at the web service, but that's more from if I remember well, from a architectural point of view. And CAS authentication has been already accepted, but none of these have yet been removed. It means only that the responsible developer can now remove them from code. So if any of you is interested in these features, then now it's your time now to react, not when we publish ILIAS 11. Then it's too late.
I would be really surprised if someone still used CAS.
Yeah, well, it's just to mention why he's telling that. If it's accepted, what can we still do? It's still in the code, and there are some selection of some suggestions. As I said, it's still some months to go. But for example, it's suggested to abandon the advanced search, the user search, the personal and shared resources, filters and categories, the group by type view in containers, the SCORM presentation of the SCORM learning module in the same window, not in a new window, in an own tab. Drafts and forum question pools for surveys, the web link list. So web link will be, if it abandoned the list, will only every web link will be one hyperlink exactly, not a list of links. The news on the info page, rating, and Google Maps. So these are some of the features that are suggested to be abandoned. If you go on the feature wiki, release 11, then you see what has already been accepted. If you go on the abandoned page, then you see which suggestions do exist there.
And I also think it's safe to say that this won't be the final list, I guess. So there will be more stuff, bigger or smaller, that is on the list at the end.
Yeah, the thing is that's it also, like with the next slide, with the features that come with ILIAS 11, is also often a question of financement. Not every feature could be took out of the source code that easily, so sometimes they are kept. But if one of you is interested of these suggested features and thinks, well, that's something very important for my installation in our institution, our company, then go to the feature wiki page and let us know about that. And of course, then we have to think how we can keep it. Does not mean that if you just make a posting that it is saved, but it's important for us, and especially for me as a product manager, to know who still needs this feature, and maybe we have also a couple of features in ILIAS that no one uses anymore, so we can get rid of them. But if we don't know that you use them, we can't. It's difficult to find a solution and make a decision. So we also have some new features. As usually in the spring DevConf, the list is not that long. Will get longer in the next month. One important thing that will come with ILIAS 11 in a first step is the revision of the test question creation. Unfortunately, we have got funding for that from the OSDN project. Some of you maybe remember we made that announcement on the last ILIAS conference in Graz. Cornelis Carter told us that the Land Niedersachsen will offer almost 1 million euro for the next 4 years to improve ILIAS and maybe focus on the test and assessment. So the revision of test question creation will be one of these first projects that we can realize with that. There will be some improvements of the individual assessment, improvement of usability, but also custom assessment forms. If you're interested in that, this is the man you can ask about that. Manual sorting of favorites and my courses and groups on the dashboard. We have a couple of improvements in the data collection. I don't mention them all, but our new authorities in data collection, they have a lot of ideas what can be done better, easier, more stable, more secure. So there's already a long list of features we have already accepted. We want to offer the user's learning progress as secondary panel in courses and groups and folders, so as a better presentation of the learning progress. ILIAS push notifications, some improvements of mail. That's what has already been accepted, but I'm sure that in the next 2-3 months the list get longer. If there are questions about that, maybe you have time at lunch or around that to talk about that. So, if we talk about upcoming releases, we also always at the spring DevConf, like now in end of March, we're always talking about the feature freeze. And now I have an idea to
take a breath.
How about abandon the feature freeze? Why? Okay, that's something I want to present it today. We will talk about that on the next jour fixe on next Monday. Also talk with the new technical board on Tuesday about that. But I try, if this is accepted, and if we don't find strong reasons not to do that, then it would be, I would suggest to do it already for release 11. So we don't need a feature freeze anymore for release 11. So just a look back. Feature freeze is one of the oldest elements that we use to structure the development process. Those of you who are, let's say, involved in ILIAS development for 20 years maybe, we had at this phase of ILIAS 3, where we need to redevelop, reprogram a lot of features that were already available in ILIAS 2, but due to the new architecture, needed to be re-implemented again. So we had often 2 versions per year, and we made let's say, we accepted features even short before we published the feature.
You were very agile.
Yeah, at that time, yeah, we were very agile, yeah, exactly. So then we introduced the feature freeze to say, okay, let's get it a bit more calm, let's plan the features a bit better, let's find a moment until every new suggestion has to be made, and then we can see what we can realize with the next version. So it was the main idea to make this process a bit better plannable. After that, in the last years, we introduced other elements, and one important from my point of view, maybe the most important, is coding completed, that we said, okay, there is a date until every feature has to be implemented for the upcoming ILIAS version, and we don't accept implementation during the beta testing, because that happened in the past as well. So we have different elements to structure the process. The question is, do we still need a feature freeze? And from my point of view, I think about that almost some years. Feature freeze became a bit of bureaucratic element where the question is if we still need that. Why? Because a lot of feature requests are created before the deadline, usually the 30th of April, just to meet the deadline and to be able to discuss them and to complete them in the following month, because otherwise we say, oh, hey, it hasn't been added to the feature freeze. We can't talk about that anymore. It has to wait for another year. And also requests that had been made in the past, and with minimal chance of implementation. They are all again suggested for the next version. And at the end, every year we have more than 500, 600 feature requests on this list of suggestions just to meet this bloody deadline and to be able, in case some money appears, to realize one of these projects. So, and then in case there hasn't been made a suggestion before the deadline, let's say, and then we notice in May or June, well, this feature would help us a lot and very good to implement. Then, let's say, from under the formal aspects, I had to say, yeah, but unfortunately it was suggested too late. What are we gonna do now? So it's just
maybe try to bend something or put it into something else.
So that's from my point of view, it doesn't feel that it's more preventing a dynamic development than helping us to structure the development process. So this is why I would like to get rid of the feature freeze. And what does this mean? It means that we can suggest feature requests always and at any time, and they are always suggested for trunk. Those proposals that today called accept or have the tag release 11 or release 10 and are accepted for 10 or accepted for 11, they would only be just accepted for trunk. And then this acceptance would be the same like today. So the product manager and the responsible developer, the responsible authorities would have to decide if it is accepted or not. But the decision if it goes into version 11 or version 12 is now a decision by the responsible developer, because he's the one who knows best if he can realize that feature before coding completing or not. Me, I don't have, I don't know what these service providers have on the list of things they still have to do until coding completed. So I'm always depending from the decision of the developer. So why he can't do that by his own?
And also you're depending on that decision now. So if something was handed in before feature freeze, I would also need to say I can't or I can do it before coding completed.
Exactly. So then we get rid of some statuses in the feature wiki because we don't have any more these suggested for 11, suggested for 12. It's just a suggestion. And we don't also have this not scheduled yet in the meaning of it was once suggested, but at the moment no idea when it will be realized, when it will be implemented. We have some new status, which one is suggestion. So everything what is suggested, every new feature request that is made in the feature wiki is now just, we would get this status of suggestion. Today, if I do until end of April, if I do create a new feature wiki, it has this suggestion for 11, and then after feature freeze, I change the template, and then it's suggested for 12. So we won't do that, don't need that to do that anymore, because everything is a suggestion. And then I want to introduce a new status. It's ready for your fix, because the quality of the feature request is, there's a certain quality necessary to discuss this in the feature, in a your fix. And usually it is done also in a discussion between the person who would like to implement that or would like to have this feature request and the responsible developer or the developers, so that we get a feature request with a sound quality that where we really could discuss about. And this should be a new status that we say, okay, these are feature requests that I really have now the quality to decide upon them. And this is also interesting for those of you who would like to, let's say, give some funding for features, because they say, okay, this is a concept that is really stable. We can really discuss it. It's not a vague idea, and then we still need time to realize that, and then we maybe notice that it's not possible in that way. If a feature request has status for this status for ready for your fix, it's really something we can decide upon. And then if it's accepted, then it's accepted for trunk. That's it. It's accepted for trunk, and if it's realized still for 11, this year, or if it won't make it into 11 because the developer has too much to do, or if we don't get funding, then we can also say it's later, we can put it, or the developer can say it's realized with 12 when I get the funding and when can I realize that. So the advantages would be we will have fewer feature requests on stock. We have only those features that, let's say, ILIAS 11, ILIAS 12, that really would have a high chance to get into this version. And so people who look on the list of features won't be disappointed when they say, but I saw that this feature was accepted for ILIAS 11, but now it's not in the release. Yeah, because maybe there was no funding for it, no time for it. So this won't happen anymore. There will be no false expectations. And also quite comfortable, or let's say practical for us in the GeoFix, we don't need rescheduling. Because if it's once accepted for trunk, then it don't need to discuss again next year when it didn't make it into ILIAS 10 and now has to be discussed again for ILIAS 11. So that also would make some processes easier. And
like 2 or 3 geofixes in the year where someone comes and says, oh, we already discussed this, but...
Yeah, and maybe also with this, let's say with this missing deadline, maybe some of these features make it quicker into an ILIAS version, so the time to market would maybe shorter than we think. So that's my idea, and I will discuss this again on the next GeoFix and also with the new technical board. And then I will notify you immediately if we're going to do it or not. But there's a question.
One question, will there be a deprecation date for possessions, like when you didn't have implemented it for 4 or 5 years, then will it be rescheduled in this context and maybe the event has approval?
Well, the thing is that I thought, when we discussed that, I thought a bit if there is a feature request that, let's say, it has to be discussed or decided 3 years ago, and now the circumstances have changed. For example, let's say there are the former request used UI components that doesn't exist anymore, things like that. Then I would get into contact with the developer and say, okay, we have to discuss that again. We have to make a redecision. But there is not, let's say,
an automatism, right?
There's no automatism.
So this would be something that needs to be judged by the according developer, if that's still applicable or not. So if that's still possible, if that's still correct. We talked a little about an automated process, but for some features, they are that general, they can be implemented a long time, and some maybe not, and it's hard to find the right amount of time to deprecate old features, I guess.
And I try, let's say, to take away a rule and not to add 2 more. So that's a bit the idea, to make it a bit leaner.